What if the story you were taught was incomplete? What if entire worlds of knowledge, power, and brilliance were quietly pushed into the shadows, not because they were lost, but because they were inconvenient to remember? Tonight, on Slumber Lore, we journey beyond the margins of history books, into a past that once illuminated the world, and was later dimmed by silence. Long before European kingdoms found their footing, across the vast landscapes of Africa, great civilizations rose with confidence and clarity. They built cities planned with precision, ruled territories connected by trade routes spanning continents, and cultivated knowledge that echoed through generations. These were not isolated societies. They were global participants. Between antiquity and the early modern era, African empires commanded respect through diplomacy, innovation, and wealth. In the Nile Valley south of Egypt, the Kingdom of Kush constructed monumental pyramids more than their northern neighbors, symbols of authority, belief, and architectural mastery. These structures were not copies. They were declarations. Kushite rulers once governed Egypt itself, ushering in cultural renewal that blended tradition with bold expression. Art flourished. Temples expanded. Stone spoke of ambition. Their presence unsettled rival powers, who watched carefully from afar further east. Across the highlands of the Horn of Africa, the Kingdom of Aksum rose as a commercial titan. Its leaders issued their own currency in precious metals, a sign of economic confidence, rare for the era. Aksumite merchants navigated seas and deserts, exchanging goods and ideas with partners from distant lands. Towering stone monuments pierced the skyline of Aksum's capital, carved from single blocks of rock and erected with astonishing precision. These were feats of engineering that demanded planning, mathematics, and skilled labor, proof of a society deeply versed in applied knowledge. Westward, across the savannas and riverways, another story unfolded. The empires of the Sahel grew prosperous through control of trade corridors that connected sub-Saharan resources with Mediterranean markets. Gold, salt, textiles, and learning flowed together. Among these empires, Mali became legendary. Its rulers governed not only land, but influence. Cities thrived as centers of scholarship, faith, and commerce. Libraries expanded. Teachers gathered students from across regions. Knowledge was treated as treasure. Stone cities also rose in southern Africa, assembled without binding materials, yet standing firm centuries later. Their walls curved with intention, aligned with sound and movement, reflecting a deep understanding of space and structure. When outsiders later encountered these marvels, they struggled to reconcile them with the stories they preferred to tell. Instead of listening to local memory, they searched for explanations that felt more comfortable. Anyone other than the people who built them. But the stone does not forget. Landscapes remember. And beneath the dust of centuries, the truth waited. This is only the beginning of the story. As centuries passed, the world changed, but Africa's legacy did not vanish. It was simply spoken of more quietly. Across the Sahara, the city of Timbuktu stood as a beacon of intellect. Far from a mythic outpost, it was a living center of scholarship, where astronomy, law, medicine, mathematics, and philosophy were studied with rigor. Thousands of handwritten volumes circulated among families, teachers, and students, preserved with care. These texts reveal societies deeply engaged with scientific observation and ethical debate. They recorded planetary movements, explored healing practices, and outlined systems of justice that balanced authority with responsibility. This was not borrowed wisdom. It was cultivated locally and shared widely. Yet as foreign powers expanded their reach, narratives shifted. Complex histories were flattened. Achievements were reframed as anomalies. Artifacts were removed from their contexts and reintroduced to the world as curios rather than evidence of advanced societies. In museums far from their origins, bronze sculptures from West Africa displayed remarkable technical skill. Their creators mastered metal casting methods that astonished viewers. Still, labels softened their significance, avoiding uncomfortable conclusions. Across academic circles, speculative theories emerged that attempted to separate African people from African accomplishments. These ideas were not built on evidence, but on assumption tools used to maintain a fragile worldview. Despite this, memory endured. Oral traditions passed from generation to generation preserved names, lineages, and events with remarkable accuracy. Songs became archives. Stories became timekeepers. When African nations reclaimed independence in the 20th century, scholars returned to their own past with renewed focus. Archaeology confirmed what communities had always known. Carbon dating aligned with oral history. The stones spoke in agreement with the elders, but medical manuscripts revealed techniques far ahead of their time. Mathematical texts showed sophisticated reasoning. Legal documents outlined protections for individuals and communities alike. Even leadership itself defied stereotypes. In the Nile regions, powerful queens ruled in their own right, commanding respect and shaping diplomacy. One such ruler negotiated peace with a dominant empire after fierce resistance, securing autonomy for her people. These stories were never gone. They were waiting. Here is the truth history rarely whispers. These civilizations were not merely comparable to their contemporaries, they often led them. Economic records show wealth on a scale difficult to imagine. One West African ruler's generosity during a sacred journey reshaped regional markets for years. His resources were so vast that they altered the value of precious metals across borders. Much of Europe's revival was quietly supported by African trade. Gold mined in West Africa financed art, architecture, and learning far beyond the continent. Knowledge traveled alongside it, carried through scholarly networks that connected Africa to the wider world. Engineering feats, still standing today, demonstrate mastery of physics and design. Walls aligned with sound, drainage systems planned with foresight, structures balanced beauty with durability. Yet even in recent memory, decisions were made to minimize this truth. Display choices, academic framing, and selective storytelling shaped public perception, not by accident but by intention. Today, vast collections of African heritage remain far from home. These objects are more than art, they are witnesses. And still, the story survives. In restored manuscripts, in standing stone, in voices that refuse silence. Now, you know that Africa's past is not a footnote, it is a foundation. You know that history is not just what happened, but what is remembered. If this journey stirred something within you, keep walking with us. Subscribe to Slumber Lore, share these stories, let the past breathe again.